This is an iPad Pro, this is a MacBook Pro, and this is an iPhone Pro. But what does Pro even mean? Does it mean it's built for professionals? Does it mean it's the best product? Perhaps it's the product with the black Apple stickers, or even just a marketing term to justify the higher prices. Back then, Pro wasn't just a label. It meant power, no compromise performance. You got full ports, upgradeability, something new MacBooks can only dream of, and none of this dongle nonsense. It was made for people who actually needed power, not just people who wanted the quote-unquote fancy version. But now, it's kinda just marketing. Alright, so Apple loves slapping the word Pro on their products, but what does Pro mean exactly? Is it the build, the ports, the chipset, the reliability, or the functionality perhaps? Well, it's all of them. Take for example the MacBook Pro lineup. For years, Apple made quality laptops like the 2015 15-inch MacBook Pro. It's got a solid build, full-sized ports, and its reliable performance made it a go-to for professionals. And a lot of people would say that this is the last great Intel MacBook Pro. Why? Because the next gen would be an absolute dumpster fire. People, especially professionals, the very target market for this laptop, disliked it. They kept older unibodies and retinas or just straight up switched to Windows, only to refrain from buying it. Keyboard was an absolute disaster, thermals were fire, literally, and the lack of ports is, well, just insulting. For 5 years, living with a MacBook Pro meant that you were living that dongle life and praying that your keyboard wouldn't die mid-sentence. This wasn't the MacBook Pro experience, rather the MidBook Pro. But here's the twist. Apple knew it sucked, because in 2021, they cooked. Two words for you, absolute cinema. They brought back ports, MagSafe, the physical function row, had killer battery and a design reminiscent of both the 2015 Pro and PowerBook G4. But it makes you wonder, if Apple had to backtrack this hard, was the 2016 MacBook Pro ever Pro to begin with? It kind of feels like that they spent 5 years trying to reinvent the MacBook Pro, only to realize they had it right the first time. The Pro in MacBook Pro is supposed to mean uncompromising power and functionality, and for some time, Apple seemed to forget that, and thankfully, they pulled it back together. And MacBooks aren't the only one with an identity crisis either, because if you think about it, what exactly makes an iPad Pro, Pro? The iPad Pro has the power of a Mac, but is still treated like a bigger iPhone. Hardware-wise, it's insane, yet software-wise, it's still iPadOS. No full-size Final Cut, no Xcode, and even desktop-class apps like DaVinci Resolve are just nerfed versions of the Mac ones. And that's where the whole Pro branding starts to feel misleading. Because what's the use of all that power if you can't even use it? Besides, the iPad Air, which by the way does more than 90% of the same things at a lower price point, probably has more appeal. Both feature super fast M3, M4 chips, and both have the same Pencil Pro support. I'd say Apple could still add an iPad Pro software exclusive like a more refined and Mac-like Stage Manager, just for the sake of that Pro naming scheme. So the iPad Pro has insane hardware, M-series chips, a stunning 120Hz display, Thunderbolt, and a sleek ultra-thin design. On paper, it should be the ultimate portable workstation, but the problem here isn't its hardware, it is the iPad Pro software. The iPad Pro has everything it needs to be a true Pro machine, except for an OS that lets it function like one. And sure, the lack of ports is understandable considering its design constraints, but why give it Thunderbolt when it still treats it like regular USB-C? Plug in an external drive and you get clunky file management. Connect to a monitor, you still don't get a true second screen experience, just an extended version of your iPad display. Even on Stage Manager, you still can't freely resize apps and windows. And that's the frustrating part. Apple is holding it back on purpose. They could add macOS style multitasking, they could allow full Pro apps, but they won't. Why? Because that would make the MacBook less appealing, and those have a significantly higher profit margin. And I am one of those people who try to love the iPad, but I can't because of its software. Believe it or not, I would love to replace my Mac with an iPad. It's lighter and more compact and does a lot of the things that my Mac does. But if you want to see me try replacing my Mac with an iPad for a week, let me know in the comments below and drop a sub, because honestly, I'd like to know whether it's possible. Now moving on to the iPhone Pro. The iPhone Pro is an interesting case. Unlike the MacBook Pro, which is meant for professionals, the iPhone Pro is still bought by millions of casual users. Apple's main pro feature, the camera. Sure, you get better build materials, a slightly bigger battery, and ProMotion display. But let's be real, if it weren't for the cameras, would anyone ever really call it a pro device? And although Apple actually differentiates the Pro models from the regular iPhones by giving certain features like better camera hardware and software, larger sensors, extra lenses, a cracked ISP, and ProRes and log encoding support, which on Android isn't even a thing, does any of this actually make it a pro device? Because here's the thing, if we define Pro based purely on camera features, then yeah, the iPhone Pro does bring some high-end tools to the table. Features like ProRAW, ProRes, and log encoding actually give content creators, filmmakers, and photographers more flexibility. Some professionals and creators do use iPhones for A-roll, B-roll, quick content capture, or even full-scale projects. But that's just one perspective. If you zoom out outside of the camera features, you'll notice that there's nothing else really pro about it. The iPhone Pro still runs the same iOS as the base iPhone. There's no pro-level file management about it, no expandable storage, no deeper pro-focused software integrations, and no real differentiations outside of the camera nor ProMotion display. Even the ports are still standard USB 3.1 and not Thunderbolt. Compare that to something like the Galaxy S Ultra line. At least Samsung gives its Ultra phones extra functionality, S Pen support, DeX mode, higher RAM and storage options, and even features like Galaxy AI tools aimed at power users, though their removal of expandable storage is still very much despicable. So is Apple's Pro branding meaningless? Well, not exactly either. But it's definitely watered down. Apple uses Pro branding more as a premium tier than an actual functional distinction between products. Yet if you're gonna use Pro as a marketing term, at least be consistent. Apple calls the MacBook Pro and the iPad Pro Pro, but their most high-end watch, that's the Apple Watch Ultra, not Apple Watch Pro. And what about the Mac Studio? It's more powerful than the entry-level Mac Pro when spec'd up to the M3 Ultra. And although it features less ports, these are faster Thunderbolt 5 ports. And that is another case where Apple's Pro branding doesn't really fit in either. The Pro branding name isn't about being for professionals. It's now about creating a pricing tier that makes people feel like they're getting an exclusive, high-end product. It's essentially just clever marketing. And the real victims here ain't the tech enthusiasts like me or you. It's the people who walk into an Apple store and assume that Pro Max automatically means the best. Apple has conditioned people to believe that if you want the top tier experience, you need to buy Pro. But in reality, many people paying extra for those Pro features don't even use the Pro features. And that's the real genius behind Apple's branding. It tricks people into buying more expensive items that they don't need. The MacBook Pro actually Pro. The iPad Pro, Pro in hardware, but software-wise, basically a glorified iPad Air. The iPhone Pro, mostly a camera upgrade and just a flex on your friends. The Apple Watch, well, they skipped Pro entirely and just went straight to the Ultra. The Mac Studio, theoretically more Pro than the Mac Pro, yet not named that way. So what does Pro even mean in Apple's world? Honestly, whatever state of Delulu they want it to mean. If Apple can redefine Pro however they want, it doesn't really mean anything, does it? And that's the problem with Apple's Pro naming scheme. It's inconsistent across its product lines. But hey, what do you know? At least it's better than Sony's naming schemes. Also, here's a fun challenge. Go back to the beginning and count how many times I said Pro, because I definitely lost count. But what do you think? Is Apple's Pro lineup actually worth it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you made it this far, consider dropping a like and sub, because trust me, this won't be the last time Apple's gonna do this. And as always, thanks for watching, love you all, have a nice day.